All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. Today's webinar, we're going to be talking about how to launch a business podcast. I'm very excited that you're joining us. Make sure that if you are enjoying the the content, hit a like, make a wave, all right, something. Introduce yourself in the chat. If you haven't, make sure you do. Say why you're here. Okay, we got some, there'll be a test later. Make sure that you're all, actually real people, okay, and not bots. That's very important. So today we're going to be talking about how to launch a business podcast. So as you may know, I have been doing a business podcast for basically for the last 7 years. It's called Schmidt List, and currently it's the longest running leadership podcast in the Twin Cities. So I'm very close to let's see, next week will probably be close to 290 episodes, and I can't tell you what a dramatic change it's been for me, but the businesses I've built and how it's helped me over the years increase my network, increase my authority in certain spaces, and allow me to grow. So I want to share that with you. I also want to take a moment to introduce my co-anchor, Matt. Hey, Matt, how you doing? Oh, why can't I hear you? Now you're muted. Of course you're muted. Right, right. Well, it wouldn't be a perfect show if everything went correctly. Um, let's try switching you over there. Hang on one second. Okay, now try.
Test 1, 2.
Yeah, there you are.
Volume. Hey, Kurt, you've been doing this for 7 years. Guess what? You're still gonna have mute problems.
I
It's
know,
still gonna
right?
happen.
I know. Isn't that the fun thing? That's the fun thing about doing
Yeah.
not just podcasting but streaming things, is
Yes.
because I honestly, I think part of the reason why I like to do the live shows, the webinars, things like that, is because of the excitement that it brings. How about you?
Yeah. Yeah, there's never a dull moment to figure out which thing is gonna not work the way it's supposed to today. I
Yeah,
mean,
so Matt,
seriously.
tell me a little bit about how you got into podcasting in general.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was into podcasts kind of in the first wave, way back in the 2000 aughts, right? Like when it first started, and sort of took a break from it. And then, like a lot of people, kind of got back into it around COVID, and have been in the space ever since. Really got into live streaming and content creation and podcast creation, and have been blown away by the ability of this particular platform, of podcasting as a platform, to make connections with people and to build relationships. So that's what I'm pretty pumped to kind of help people figure this out today.
Yeah, I think it's really important. We're gonna see a lot of things. All right, I'm gonna go back to this screen and make sure I can hear you. Okay, so now I can hear you. Yeah, now it works.
Perfect.
Now we can see each other, which is pleasant. Okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna jump right in here and get on with the Kurt and Matt show. So today we are talking about how to launch a business podcast that attracts clients and build authority, right? So, Matt, there's a lot of folks out there who do podcasts around, they review movies or sports or things like that. And that's not the types of podcasts we're talking about today, right?
No, no, not at all. Not at all. Those are all fun and those are great, but we are not here to talk about serialized crime drama.
Which, honestly, they're pretty great, aren't they?
Yeah, right. I mean, I've lost many an hour to that while I was mowing the lawn, so that's
Yeah,
fine.
you and me both.
Totally fine.
Okay, cool. So today we're going to be talking about starting a business podcast that fuels your marketing strategy, generates leads, and builds authority, all without a massive
Mhm.
budget or technical expense. And that's the best thing I really enjoy about podcasting, is not only is it just enjoyable, but it works, right, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, it is the most personal kind of communication method that you can use, and because it's like all auditory and it's right in your ear, and you're with people at times when they're doing something that generally is pretty enjoyable, right? They're
Yep.
relaxing and they're listening to you. That creates a whole different kind of connection. So these things work, and they make your life a lot easier, especially when it comes to just ongoing content creation.
Hmm. Yeah. So I want to hear from the audience. So type a one in the chat if you have considered starting a podcast, Okay. Type of 2, if you've started down the podcast road, but maybe haven't launched yet, maybe you've been exploring it. And number 3, if you have a podcast, but you're looking for ways to help make it scale for you, put those numbers in. It's really helpful for me and Matt, so we can make sure we're steering the content in a way that is good for you, that those of you who are joining us. So if you're brand new, if you're just podcast curious, type a 1. If you've done some research, put a 2. If you already started one, put a 3 in the chat, and that will be helpful for Matt and I as we go along and figure out what we should be focusing on for you. So a quick story about me. My name's Kurt, and I help agencies grow from either a revenue standpoint or a profitability standpoint, or both. If you really want to do both, I mean, it's a lot of work. No, I'm kidding. Of course, we always want to do both. We want to grow from revenue and a profit standpoint. So as I mentioned, I do a podcast, and I've got 290 some episodes. So, and my show is really focused on leadership and entrepreneurship, and I've just really enjoyed it. It's been such a great personal growth tool for me. And during that time, I was able to build a business, and we hit the Inc. 5000 a couple of times. And so I've taken that knowledge and that experience and launched my own consulting business that really focuses on working with other agencies and helping them grow. And, podcasts sometimes comes up in those discussions. Speaking of podcasts coming up in discussions, Matt, tell us about the work you're doing.
Yeah, sure. So I spent a long time kind of embedded with one organization where we kind of kicked this podcasting adventure off, like I said, around the COVID time. And through doing that, I started to see the power of this as a platform and how it can be central to anybody's content strategy in whatever industry they might be in, and started to see how that builds trust and authority and makes relationships on a deeper level than I was used to with social media posts and even video stories. Those are great, but nothing was as successful as podcasting, with people feeling like they knew you and they could trust you and they were ready to buy your product or buy your service. So left that space a couple of years ago, really dedicated my time to content strategy and helping people tell stories that build trust. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. And I want everybody to stick around to the end, because Matt has put together a checklist assessment for folks that we're going to share the link to everybody who registered. We're going to send that out. So, but if you're interested, make sure that you stick around to the end so you can get an idea of how to get a hold of that. It's a really valuable tool, Matt. He's got tons of experience, and he's boiled down a lot of it into a great assessment for everyone. All right, well, let's jump right into the meat of things. This is the exciting part. Okay, so why is podcasting the best choice for your business? And as Matt mentioned, they build trust with long form and authentic content. And I want to touch on the long form and authentic content part just a little bit, Matt. So let's address the elephant in the room. I'm nervous. I don't want to talk into a microphone and talk to people. And what are they going to think about me? And everybody's going to judge me, and I'm going to be embarrassed. And so, what's better is just not to do it at all. How do you first coach people around this idea, Matt, that they're nervous about the idea?
Well, I think we just got to get out of our own way a little bit, right? I mean, I think we are often our biggest critic, and the reality is that we all have unique perspectives and lots of really valuable things to share. And if you just start doing it, right, you just start saying the things and getting your POV out there, I think that goes a long way to helping you kind of focus that for yourself. And getting kind of comfortable in your own skin and saying the things that you believe in and the way that you do business and the way that you solve people's problems, all of those things. But I think ultimately you just got to get doing it. Like, you just got to try it and get comfortable. One of my favorite quotes is, you can't grow unless you're uncomfortable. So get uncomfortable.
Yep. Yeah. And one of the things I did early on too was I just recorded a few things and then sent it to some people not I didn't publish it like a full podcast or anything. I sent it to some people and I just said, "What do you think?" And that really helped me kind of get, as you said, like get over myself a little bit, and and um and then it started that, once that ball started rolling, there was no turning back.
Yeah, I would say though, don't watch yourself. Like that's really unnerving for people. Like, so I
Yeah.
would say as much as you can, find people you trust their feedback on, and send it to them to watch and give you feedback, because that's more valuable than anything. Early on, I sent it out, same thing, sent it out to some folks, and I said, hey, like, what do you think? What's going wrong? What's going well? And they highlighted like 3 things that I do all the time that I didn't know I was doing.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, okay, thank you for that. That's
Yeah.
really annoying. Now I notice it all the time.
Yeah. And again, like that's an important tip for folks, is that you don't think when you're launching a podcast, like I have to just all of a sudden launch and do
Right.
this big thing. Take a hint from great products out in the world and beta test it a little bit,
Yes. Yes.
and let some people just hear some audio recordings that you've done. Um, so the other thing that we want to do here is, with that long form content, what's great about it is that we can turn this into so much more
Mhm.
interesting and important content. And one of the things that I've done over the years is, there's the obvious, right? I'm going to take the long form content, I'm going to chop it up into smaller social media posts and videos and things like that, right? But the other value that I found is that over time, I've been able to take pieces of my show and help me craft things like my books. Like, my books
Mhm.
were very influenced by, the shows and the content that was created there. And the transcriptions were really helpful in giving me some sort of clay to work with as I built out those things. And then, also, creating, lead magnets of things like an
Mhm.
ebook, or a checklist or a download or things like that
Right,
that
yeah.
help people out,
Yeah.
right? And as I'm going through and I'm doing these shows, it's helping me generate this bigger chunk of content that I can really just piece away from and create a lot more interesting things from it. What's your advice there, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, even when you get to the point where maybe you're doing a speaking engagement or you're doing some kind of presentation, being able to draw on stories from different episodes and maybe people that you've spoken to over the duration of your show, you can pull those into those, and suddenly it's so much more engaging. And I would say, don't be afraid to make a bad episode, because guess what? They're not all going to be great. But the more that you could experiment, and the more that you try things out, the more that you um, test, the better your show is going to be.
Yeah.
And the more reach you're going to have, the more impact you're going to have with the people you want to impact.
Yep, 100%. And so, the other thing here, I guess I'm jumping around a little bit, but positioning
That's all
yourself
right.
as an industry thought leader, because here's the bottom line, and this is the thing that I see happen so much, Matt, over and over again. And if you folks in watching right now, if you're someone who is a person who, usually meets with your client up front and does a discovery session, right? So
Mhm. Yeah.
if you're someone that does a discovery with your clients before you do work, put a one in the chat for me down there. Um, because if you're doing that work up front, it's such important work, right? It's so important to understand how you're working with your clients and what you're going to be doing, especially in a service-based business. And that's what my whole entire career has been about, is service-based businesses. I enjoy it. So, but I have to have an understanding of what that client's doing or they're going to be doing, and I can turn that into a show. It's like I sit
Absolutely.
there with people
Absolutely.
and all the time where they are showing me, hey, okay, so what do you do about this? How do you do this? And they're so good in the room when they're consulting with folks. It's
Mhm.
really a natural skill that you can just take and port over to this medium.
Yeah, I mean, all of those, any discovery call you've ever had through the duration of your career is ripe for content picking. Like,
Yeah.
use that stuff. It is
Yeah.
gold. It is gold.
It is. It's gold. And I talk to so many people that are like, oh, well, I want to make sure I'm getting paid for those things. It's such important stuff. And I'm like, yes. So
Mhm.
let's record it and share it with
Mhm.
folks and get them interested in learning who you are and why we work with you, right? Because again, back to that authority figure thing, Matt, people do business, guess what? With people they like, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
People they like, people they trust. And
Yeah.
guess what? When you're in that discovery mode, you're doing the best job that you're ever going to do figuring out the problem that you're going to solve for those folks. So use
100%.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of problems, a lot of people get overwhelmed at the idea of launching a show and being able to start their own show. So let's talk through a little ways or a few ways for people not to get overwhelmed, right? So this is the stuff that I usually suggest to people to think about when they are thinking about starting a podcast. So let's talk about the time commitment because Matt, that's another top issue that comes up with people when I'm chatting with them about starting a podcast is the time
Mhm.
commitment. Now, currently, I probably spend about an hour a week, and that's due to a lot of tools that I use to help me. But in the beginning, yeah, it took a little longer because I was kind of getting new to it, and I was spending a bit more time editing than I probably should have, or that anybody cared, right? I cared, but nobody
Yeah.
nobody else cared. Um, so talk to me about the time commitment. What do you usually tell people about expecting to spend in terms of time?
Yeah, I think the 1 to 2 hours per week commitment is a good place to start, especially when you're kind of just getting going. I would say what I normally tell people is you gotta time block this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you gotta put a little work in on the front end to kind of do a little bit of that strategy and the thinking and to map out like what's my show really about and what am I really doing? And obviously you're going to evolve that stuff, but then time block it so that you don't even have to record every week, right? Like you might not actually spend a couple hours every week doing actual recording or actual editing. That might just be posting the shows. Realistically, what you should be doing is saying, okay, here's my content calendar for a month. I'm
Mhm.
going to take one day and I'm going to record all that stuff that day. And then it's going to get edited, maybe the next day. So then you got 2 days from that month and you're built and you're ready to go.
Yeah,
Time
that's the
block, time
smart way
block,
to
time
go.
block, time block.
It is smart because even my show, I usually record like 4 episodes in a week and then release them over the next month.
Mhm.
And it's even though it's a weekly show, nobody cares that it was recorded a couple weeks ago. It doesn't really, I'm not
No.
talking about current events. It's not the daily or anything.
Well, and even yeah, no, yeah, no, it's
And
not.
those those
Our
poor
shows are not
folks,
that.
yeah, they're up at 3 in the morning recording. So we we're not talking about that kind of show today.
No, no. And if you wanna make that kind of show, good for you. We are not the people to talk to you about that
No,
kind of show.
no, no. We no. Okay, so let's talk about equipment because again, the second biggest question I get, Matt, is equipment. Right? What kind of microphone do I get? What kind of headphones do I get? What kind of software do I use? All these different things. So, Matt, let's dive right into the microphone question.
Microphones. Oh my gosh. Which mic should you buy? Well,
Which mic should I buy? Come on, Matt, tell me.
it depends. No,
What?
so honestly, I tell everybody the most important thing to do when you're thinking about what microphone do I need to buy
Yeah.
is to get the one that fits your budget and the one you're going to use because audio when it comes down to podcasting, good audio trumps everything else.
Yep.
Good audio trumps everything else, so it has to sound right. And that doesn't mean that you need to spend $1,000 on a microphone. You probably shouldn't only spend $40 on a microphone, but anything from a name brand that's reputable, anything from Shure, anything from Rode, anything from Elgato is going to work just fine. Like, don't sweat it. Find the thing that's about 99 bucks and go get it and try it because what you'll find out
Yeah.
is you can always upgrade.
Yeah, you'll see, if you go back, 7 years, I started out with just a very simple microphone. Eventually, I got the big Daddy Shure microphone here,
Yeah, yeah,
which I really like, but there's still a lot of issues with this microphone that you have to deal with in terms of gain and all these other things that cause issues. So there's really no magic bullet. Even if you buy the best microphone or what people say is the best microphone, you're still going to have hurdles to jump over.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yeah. The one that works. Buy the
the
one
one
that
that
works for you,
works.
which in my case, like I've got the Shure MV7. If
Yeah.
people want a specific model, it's the Shure MV7. It has a really phenomenal preset that can be near or far. So mine's right up here. So here, we'll bring it down. So
Yep.
it's up here. It's off the thing.
Yeah.
And I don't have to touch it. Right? It's
Yeah.
all good. It's ready to go.
It's all ready to go. And I like that
Mhm.
with the microphones. So, a simple USB mic or lightning, not lightning, but or USB-C, microphone, and then recording, obviously we can just record into things like if you're using a Mac, you can just use QuickTime, right? Or
Mhm.
something. You don't need to, my first 2 years of my show were done in GarageBand, and it's free
Yeah.
software that
Yeah.
comes with a Mac, and it works great. And it's so simple to use and so easy to use. But nobody ever asked me and was like, "Oh, is that in GarageBand?" Because they could tell or something.
Right.
Like, nobody could tell.
Well,
you know.
the reality is that everybody's got so much more grace when it comes to what a production looks like and what it feels like today, because we all went through virtual COVID, right? Like we went
Right.
through that whole period. And so everybody's like,
Yep.
okay, it doesn't have to sound perfect. Like there are a ton of podcast shows out there that are recorded in Zoom.
Yep.
Like they just are. That's how it works.
Yep. All right. And then we're going to dive into AI tools a little bit deeper later. But, one of the key things in the last few years for me has been diving into editing via AI and using AI to
Mhm.
do a lot of my tools. Now, it's not the cheapest option. Obviously, it's a lot more expensive than GarageBand, but there's a lot of tools out there that I'll be sharing links to in a message that I use. And some of those things are like Descript and Castmagic, which are fantastic tools for helping you edit. Because one thing I like about Descript is that it is a text-based editor.
Mhm.
So if when you upload your audio, it creates a transcript, and then as you're editing the word file, basically it looks like a word file. As you're editing
Mhm.
that, it's editing the audio for you, so I can pull out the ums, the ahs, the and so and this and that very, very quickly, and it makes it seamlessly edit. Plus just like I can edit that out. And the the plus with it as well is that it does have ways to automatically kind of improve your audio quality and make it sound a little bit better. In terms of one thing that I want to mention too, and I want to get your take on, Matt, is where I should be recording. Now, if you go to
Mhm.
places like TikTok or Reels or things, you'll see a lot of voiceover actors. They're just in their closets, basically, because clothes and fabric is such a great sound absorber that there's no
Yep.
better place to record than in a closet, because you're completely consumed. Now, I've got a home office here, and one of the ways that I've helped with the sound in the room is this: there's a lot of stuff in here. That's it.
Yeah.
There's not, I don't have
Yep.
fancy expensive sound panels and redirects and all these different things. It's just the amount of things that are with me in my room really help break down the sound. So what's your uh advice for people on where to actually record their show when they're doing a
Yeah, not in your kitchen. Don't do the
no?
kitchen thing, because while there is a lot of stuff in your kitchen, those are hard edges, and the hard edges are bad for sound. So, two things. Most important thing: get your microphone as close to your face as you can. Like, get it as close as you can. That's why Kurt has it where he has it.
Yep.
Um, the other thing is like low ceilings and soft things,
Yeah.
carpeted spaces, places with couches. Um, if you really have to, you can hang a blanket on the wall to help, because
Hmm.
what sound does is it bounces. So anything that can be absorbed, that's what you want to try to do. So if it's like, oh, why does it sound so boomy and tinny in here? Well, just like put a blanket on the wall when you record, or go into your closet and
Yeah.
record with your clothes. Yeah.
Yep.
That's
Yeah,
really
I
what it
was
comes down to.
when we had a podcast studio for a little while. Uh, I just hung up a string and to the wall and hung a blanket over the
Yeah,
string. In
moving blankets are great.
Yeah, and it just blocked out so much stuff. So that's just a quick tip that I wanted to talk to everybody about. It is because the easiest way to get quality audio is it's garbage in, garbage out, right, Matt?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Mic placement above all things, because that means um, it can cut out everything else.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let your fingers do the walking. Now, if there's anybody old enough to remember what this is the title for, or what this is the tagline for, which company this was the tagline for, put it in the chat, and you'll get a free like from me. Okay, so let your fingers do the walking. Okay, now I want to talk about AI tools because there is a million of them out there, right, Matt?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's hard to figure it out.
It is hard to figure out. Now, I have tested a lot. I have done and spent a lot of money on different AI tools that were going to promise um, you know, the thing for me was really making sure that I was spending my money in the right place. When
Mhm.
you're looking at AI tools, Matt, how do you sort of judge them?
I think my take is, how close is it to being ready for me to use once I get that output? So, everything's going to have a little bit of a learning curve to figure out, like, well,
Yeah,
what's the right prompt and what are the buttons I have to press and how to do the things. But like, once I get the thing, whether that's a summary, whether it's supposed to be my LinkedIn post for that episode, how close is it and how good of a job does it do it, like figuring getting my voice right, so that I don't have to go back and do a lot of editing. I talk a lot in other spaces about how AI is a great starter, but when you're in this kind of operationalized mode with podcast production, you want it to be pretty darn good. I mean, you really want it to be close to being ready to just post, because otherwise you're just spending money to redo work.
well, exactly. Because now let's talk about, because that was subjective, right? Is that what is good
Yeah.
look like? Well, it's hard for you to judge it yourself, right? Like, make sure you're
Yeah.
sharing it
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
other people.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Because I get people all
Yeah.
the time that are like, "Wow, your podcast sounds so good," and I'm like, "Really? Yeah, it could be better. I don't know. I like, you know, um, but that's just how it goes." Okay, so um, Descript I've talked about a little bit. It is honestly it's a fantastic tool for any editing at all, even if you're not just doing
Mhm.
podcasts, but if you're doing product videos, if you're starting a YouTube channel, if you're because it does video and audio really great, and it also allows you to capture an AI version of your voice. So what's happened to me in the past that's been really helpful with Descript is that maybe my sound drops out at the end of a sentence because I got high ducking on. And Matt, do you want
Yeah.
to kind of explain what ducking is? Because you'll see that a
Yeah.
lot
It just keeps.
in tools, right?
Yeah, the ducking is basically turning everything down. So it's like you'll be talking and then maybe you get a little too low and then it just cuts you off because it thinks that that's not supposed to be coming through the microphone anymore. So
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Hey, Kurt, I love the way that." Oh, and then you're like, "Wait, what happened? What was going on?"
Yep. Yep, exactly. And you'll see that ducking option, which is great to reduce background noise when you're recording. But what it can do
Mhm.
is cut you off if you kind of trail off in a sentence or something. Now, um, what's great about Descript though is that I can actually just put the word back in and it will put AI will use my voice to just put that word back in. It's fantastic. It's literally magical. It's great. I really enjoy
It,
that
it is.
feature. Um,
It is. Or if you screw up and say, 10 when you meant to say 15, or
yes,
10 when you
yes,
meant to say
exactly.
20, you can go
Yeah,
back and make those kinds of corrections.
yeah. Or if a guest calls me Kirk a lot in a show,
Right. Right. Yeah.
I can go in and fix them. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's never happened before. I just completely made that up.
That's
Anyways,
not true, Kirk.
it's not true. Um, and then Castmagic. Now, this is also a powerful tool and being able to take the finalized audio and put it into a tool that gives me everything I could ever want in a written form, timestamps, blog posts, show notes, scripts for short form video, gives me title ideas. It gives me everything. It is such an amazing tool. I turned Matt onto it a while ago,
Yeah.
Matt, and you've used it. What are your thoughts?
It was a game changer for me, like immediately. Using Castmagic uh and tools like that, like it opens up your whole world in terms of other ways you can use it. So like I do all the normal stuff, right? I have it help do summaries and notes for my episodes and that kind of stuff. But you can also use it to help you with podcast preparation calls. So when you're doing all that work to get ready for your guest, having that kind of take that stuff and summarize it and get the bullets out for you, so you don't have to spend all the time going back through your notes. That's awesome. Or if you're doing I do group meetings with folks where we're kind of brainstorming about marketing concepts and ideas, taking all of those meeting notes and running it through that, like recording it, uploading it into Castmagic, letting it tell me what were the three things we primarily talked about and who said what. It's magical.
It's
It is
great.
magical. Yeah.
It's literally magical. It's so much fun to be able to go back and really summarize things in a bite-sized way, not just for yourself, but again to turn it into content that you can go out and
Yes.
share to help build your authority in that space. And the last one I want to talk about is ElevenLabs, and this one is taking that idea of AI voices to the next level. So not only does ElevenLabs allow you to kind of make a new version of your voice, but you can bring in other speakers and different people. So maybe just maybe you are a better writer than you are a speaker. You could upload your script to there and be able to create a podcast with an AI speaker that can then be kind of the voice for you. So if you're really nervous about the idea of getting out there and speaking yourself, well, there's ways to around that now, isn't there, Matt?
Well, yeah, that's a good one that you mentioned. One I was playing with the other day was Google Notebook LM,
Yeah.
and that's a little terrifying, to be quite honest. But it was really cool. It was really cool. I took a presentation outline for a speech that I'm going to be giving, and fed it to it and said, "Hey, make a podcast episode out of it." And it was so spot on in terms of being able to
It's
I could
really
have published it.
amazing.
I could have published it. I'm like, these are two fake people, and they were talking about the concepts that I laid out there, and I'm like, man, that's pretty good.
Well,
Pretty
see,
good.
but this goes all the way back to our initial slide, is that even though that AI will be able to replicate these things, it's not going to build authority and trust with you and
Yes.
your
Yes.
brand as good as you can, right? And so one of the things, especially that I know that happens with a lot of founder led sales out there, people that are the founders and the CEOs that are doing the sales, nobody can sell better than those folks can. Nobody can close better than those folks can. And they'll go out and they'll hire salespeople, and they'll wonder, why are these salespeople not closing and selling as much? Well, because nobody can do it as good as you. And they'll be like, oh, but I want to do business things. And it's like, yeah, sorry, you can't. You have to, well, you can, but you also have to do this. Doing a
But you
thing
also have
like a
to keep selling.
podcast and stuff can really help build that authority quickly, but that's where the AI tools can help sort of supercharge what you're doing and make it sound as best as it possibly can, make it as repeatable as possibly as you can, and just save a lot of time, you know?
Yeah, the operational side is huge because these things do take time,
They
right? I
do.
mean, you do have to dedicate some time and some energy to it. So every little minute helps, and if you can get really strong on your AI game, it's going to save a lot of hours.
And that's the goal, right? It's because
Yeah, yeah.
time is money. Am I right?
Oh, more than anything else, my friend. More than anything else.
Oh my
One
gosh.
thing I wanted to mention on that last piece, we were talking about podcast building, kind of leadership and authority and trust for these founders in these groups. Guess what? It's also a fantastic tool to use with your sales team. So when you do hire that sales team and you're trying to arm them with like, how do you sell as well as I do? Guess what? Podcasts create phenomenal content It's not the same as the founder selling, but it can get pretty darn close.
Yeah, imagine being able to give your new salesperson a couple hours worth of audio of you talking
Mhm.
about the product, its
Mhm.
value, and those sorts of things. You can onboard somebody pretty damn quick. Am I right?
Yep. Absolutely.
We
Absolutely.
do have one question. This is a really interesting one, Matt. So have you tried recording or casting from Apple Vision Pro using Zoom? Perhaps I'm
Oh,
often told the sound the sound quality when I'm in AVPs is terrific. Now, number one, I will tell you I have not used Apple Vision Pro, but I will tell you that the new Apple AirPods have great microphones in them. They really do. Like you can record a podcast on your phone and with those new AirPods, and they sound great.
yeah. I agree. I mean, I would not say, if you're in the AirPods kind of Gen 1 stuff, that's going to be tinny and it's going to be awful.
Hmm.
But the new Pros and the fours are great. It's, again, all of this technology is advancing so much, and with what we're doing in mind, with trying to enable people to be able to create this kind of stuff. So it's only going to get better, which can be a whole different conversation around. Well, then who do we trust, right? Who's publishing the right stuff? But that's for a different day. I've
That's for a
not done the
different day.
Vision Pros. I think that would be really cool. I think that would be really cool from a spatial perspective. And that's maybe the next like fun thing to play with is like, okay, as someone's walking across the room, can you give them walkthroughs of how they should be doing the thing they're supposed to be doing, right? And if you're coaching them in that environment, that's fantastic stuff. That's super cool.
I just imagine Andrew, the guy who asked this question, uh, is watching us in a 3D spatial place
Yeah,
right
right.
now.
Yeah. He's minority reporting us around the room. That's what's happening.
Exactly. That's very exciting for me just to think about. Okay. All right. The other thing here that comes up a lot with folks is cost. Is let's talk about cost.
Yeah.
Making the podcast work for you without breaking the bank. Okay. So I want to talk through a couple of hosting things. So Matt, can you maybe can you explain how podcasting works from like a mechanics standpoint real quick? Can you break it down? Why do we need a host and all those things for the people that are very new here? Just a real quick refresher on what how does a podcast get from my computer to the world?
Yeah, sure. So, like just like a website, right? Everything's got to be hosted somewhere. So, your podcast files, you're going to put them in a spot, whatever the platform is. That's going to generate your RSS feed, and that's the thing that drives all the information about your podcast to whatever platform. So that's what Apple's looking for. That's what Spotify is looking for. That's what Amazon Music is looking for. All of these things are looking for that RSS feed that has all the information about your episode in it and will let them be downloaded. So really when we talk about hosting platforms for these things, it's who's gonna take my episode file when it's done. I'm gonna upload it there. And then when I put in all my summary and my details and my titles and my pretty graphics, it's just gonna sit there for me and be distributed to the mass channels.
Great, thank you, Matt. Yeah, because I have an RSS feed and I use a tool called Spreaker, which is my
Yeah.
hosting platform. But there's also Spotify for creators. There's Buzzsprout. There's a lot of them. There's Lisbon that's been around forever. There's a ton of different sort of hosting services. And really, to be honest, just like Matt said, all they're doing is creating an RSS feed. They're all kind of the same. It's really about cost. And in my mind, it's cost and UI. Like, who's got a
Yeah,
better UI to
totally.
use?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. What are you
um,
what are you most comfortable with? Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, I think you can host a podcast on Squarespace even too. I think, and if you have a hosting
Yeah.
platform, you can host
most
directly
of
from
them
those
most of them are
places.
giving you an option now, or I mean, I don't know, YouTube. I
Yeah,
mean,
just
you know.
straight to YouTube. Yep,
Yep.
and YouTube is quickly becoming like the biggest place for podcasts. They're killing it. So, but what's great about YouTube is that they can also take an RSS feed and publish
Hmm.
to your channel just like you would at Apple Podcasts or anything else. So
Yep.
it's a great option to go with a place that is dedicated for podcast hosting. Plus, if you're interested, maybe in the future you want to do advertising and things, they also have
Yep.
the ability for you to add advertising and things there as well. All right, guests. Let's talk about guests. So when I first started out guesting, I wanted guests on the show. I started with people I've worked with in the past. That was the first thing I did. People that were in my probably closer network. And then what I did is that every guest I had on, I would ask them, who should I have on? Who do you know? And now you've been on the
Yeah.
show and you've kind of, you kind of walked around in it a little bit. You've checked out the space, right? Who do you think would be great for this? And you wouldn't believe how many people are like, oh, you should talk to my old boss from this place, or blah blah. Oh, could I get an intro to that person? Or people will ask you, who are you looking for? Oh, I'm looking for CEOs of small HVAC
Hmm.
businesses to come on and talk about HVAC, because that's the people I'm
Yep.
trying to attract. What other advice would you have, Matt?
Yeah, that the big one there is going after people who are your ideal customer profile. So go after those folks, invite them on the show, because what you're really doing is sales calling here. Like, you're reaching out, you're trying to get them on the show so you can build a relationship and build trust and build authenticity, so that maybe someday down the road you all can do business together, or you can work on something together. So go after those ideal customer profile folks. I think the other thing is, don't be afraid to ask. Like, if there's somebody that maybe you don't know, just build that pitch to them and ask, because guess what? Number one, people love to talk about themselves. Number two, everybody's afraid to ask. So the chances are nobody's asked that person that you want to have on your show to be on their show. So they haven't had a chance to say yes. So give them the opportunity to say yes.
Yeah, that's gold. Honestly, everybody, if you take anything away from this show, it is that most people don't ask, and in the
Hmm.
people that do in an authentic way, you be surprised, right? My father always said you get 100% of what you don't ask for. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's true. And so guesting is really important. And again, like for me, I would sometimes specifically target people that I could do business with, but I was also very interested in people that were highly networked in those spaces as
Yeah.
well, to build referrals within those groups, and that was also very successful for me over time with the business as well,
Well, the other
and fun, you know,
Yeah, I was gonna say the other thing is, like, who are some people that you just want to learn from? Like,
right?
who are the people that are fascinating to you that you might get something out of? Because one of the things that I found in all the episodes I've hosted and all the shows I've helped people do is that when you're sitting there and you're doing a prep call with somebody, and then you're getting their point of view on something and all of their perspective and all of their tips, you learn a ton. And so it's like,
You
in
do.
some ways, a little bit selfish, when you're doing a podcast show, you're just taking everything from everybody that comes on your
Yeah.
show.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last thing is creating. We talked about using AI or other tools, or yourself. As I had a friend in here, Alex, mentioned that he edits still an iMovie, and there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. Nobody knows, nobody cares. You don't need Adobe Premiere Pro or Final Cut to look fantastic. And creating some of the short clips from the podcast and sharing them out is super powerful. It can really help spread the word for people to get a bite size of something before they order the entire meal.
Mhm.
So I think it's really positive. All right, so we are closing out here in the end. Matt, do you want to tell the audience a little bit about what you've created for them?
Yeah. You bet. So, one of the things when people start thinking, hey, I should start a podcast, they forget all of the detail that kind of goes into just the tactical, practical of the thing. So I've got a few page document that sounds bigger than it really is. Really, it's the first page is the most intensive piece of it, where you kind of go through and outline your show, and you talk about, why am I doing it? Who am I going after? How frequently is it going to, do I think I'm going to release the thing? So it just kind of forces you to go through and do that work a little bit. And then there's some other checklist stuff about, some of what we talked about today, platforms, and hey, don't forget to get a hosting provider. Hey, make sure you're creating those short clips, some of that kind of stuff. But the meat of the thing is page one. If you can do page one, you're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and one other thing here that I want to mention is that we'll be sending this out also via email to folks But I will, in the comments, once we're done here, Matt will put a link to that in the comments so people can check it out when they come back for the replay. And then also Matt does one-on-ones with people. So if you're
Mhm.
interested in maybe getting some expert one-on-one advice for your specific situation, Matt is available to reach out, and he can talk with you through what your goals and ideas are, and give you some ideas on how to do it. So he's more than open to having one-on-ones with folks.
Yeah, I love helping people tell their stories, and I've yet to find anyone come to me with a bad idea for a show.
Yeah,
Just
it's
saying.
amazing how many good stories there are out there, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so here's what we covered today. So why podcasting is a kind of a game-changing way for attracting clients, not just attracting clients, but directly reaching out and contacting clients. And as Paul had mentioned in the comments, it's also free consulting. It really is.
Yeah.
You could just reach out to people and say like, "Hey, I'm super happy to learn from you, and I want to learn from you, and and it's really cool because there's networking, and then there's this sort of formality that podcasting brings to a conversation that you
Mhm.
can't replicate in just a coffee meeting. And I've found what you get is you get the business hat um, on that person very quickly, right, Matt?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Like the power of that podcasting conversation is tremendous because they open up in different ways that they just wouldn't have done, and you start to dive in and dive deeper and deeper and deeper, and you get folks in their most authentic and most natural state, and
Yeah.
it's amazing stuff.
Then we also covered about using simple equipment, using AI tools,
Mhm.
cost-effective strategies, obviously for finding guests and growing your audience and repurposing your content. The other great thing about doing a podcast is that eventually it starts to lead to you getting on other podcasts as
Yes.
well, where you can really start to supercharge and spread your message, right?
Yeah, I mean that was the alarming thing is the first time you get asked to be on somebody else's show, you kind of sit back and go, "Wait a minute, I'm supposed to host. I'm supposed to be
Yeah,
doing this thing."
right. What am I gonna say?
But
And then
yeah, like
you
what?
find
No,
yourself
I'm asking
rattling
the
off.
questions here. Yeah, yeah. And then you
Um,
realize, oh, I do have a point of view, and I do have perspective, and I do have things to share that
yeah,
I've just
yeah.
been bottling up.
Well, so Sam here asked about use how to use the podcast medium as an advertising tool rather than worrying about the popularity of the show. And that's
Mm,
also really key because I vanity metrics. First of all, let's just talk about metrics in podcasting, period. They are crap. They are
yep.
terrible, terrible, terrible. They're because it uses this antiquated RSS feed technology. It's really hard to track accurate metrics. That's why I like people really making sure they're using YouTube at least as one channel because you can
Hmm.
get some sort of demographics and things. But over the years, the only way I've gotten real info from people is surveys because it's the only way you get that information. Now, the problem with surveys is that you only hear from people who are people that will fill out surveys too. So there's like another
Right, right,
layer
right.
there
It's
as
another layer
well.
of bias. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I would for sure say if your goal is to use it as a tool to build authority in your space, you don't necessarily need to worry about how many downloads it's getting from um, a metric standpoint, right, Matt?
Yeah, you're not here because you think you're going to be the next million download
Joe
podcast
Rogan.
host. Yeah, you're not we're not going to be him. So what we are going to be is a valuable resource, a trusted resource for people in our niche, in our space that they can go to and they can learn from, and they can really begin to feel good about building that relationship. And that is going to be way more valuable than being able to say, oh, I had 30,000 listeners this year on my podcast. Well, that's great, but what did they do from a business perspective for you?
Yep.
What revenue did they drive for you at the end of the day? And the reality is maybe that would get you a couple $100 in whatever random advertisement that came through. It's not an advertising play. If you're in B2B and you're doing a podcast, or B2C and you're doing a podcast, this is all about authority and trust building.
Yeah, and Sam also brought up adding it as a formal part of your marketing plan. So
Mm-hmm.
putting real budgets to it. But then, as we talked about, once you create the content, that's just the start of the podcast value. Is once you've got the recording, that's not the end of the value. That's just the beginning of the value that you can start to create, and creating that way of sharing that, of using it to get more guests, all those things. Those metrics can come in handy when you're trying to get guests too. Like, hey, come on this, semi-popular show or whatever.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's really about showing somebody, you see the people I've had on the show, they're like you. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to be a part of that club, come on here. But talk to me a little bit about the formal marketing part of it, Matt, from your perspective.
Yeah. So I tell everybody that, it's like building a baseball team. So every good content strategy has something at the center of it. Every good baseball team is built up the middle of the diamond. So it's catcher, pitcher, middle infielders, and center fielder, because those are the people that impact the most, right? So they touch every play. So when it comes to podcasting and how does that fit into your content strategy, it can be the literal centerpiece of your entire content strategy, your entire marketing strategy, because it's a consistent creation mechanism for you, and a place where you can take that one long form piece of content, and even at the most simple level, you take one 30-minute conversation and you turn it into 4 weeks worth of social reels and social posts. So
Yeah.
one interview, one 30-minute interview covered your month.
Yep, exactly. And it can be used for so many other PR tactics and things, as well as part of a formal marketing plan. And I've seen a lot of places be very successful with a podcast as that hub and spoke sort of model. It's fantastic. Okay, so we've been answering some questions. If we've got a few more minutes here, if people have any other comments or questions, Sam, thanks for jumping in and adding some knowledge to what we're doing. Yes, Sam talked about hard to track actual podcast metrics. Partner with the right marketer, and they can help you improve that. And that's something that he's learned over time. Because, yeah, that's the one thing that I learned very quickly about metrics in podcasting is that, maybe someday they'll get off of the RSS feed, maybe, Matt, as the kind of crux for it. I don't know.
I mean, it's been 20 years. It's been 20 years. They've not changed it.
I know. Yeah, I think it's really powerful. No matter what the metrics and things are when it comes to podcasting, you're going to find value in it, whether you grow your business or you grow as a person. Because
Yeah.
if you grow as a person, guess what? Your business is going to grow. Okay. And so maybe you don't get a million clients from it. Maybe, you don't double your revenue because you started a podcast, but I promise you will grow as a person, you will grow as a business person, and that is something really hard to put a price to, right, Matt?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the way that you figure out your unique perspective on things when you're hosting a show, there's no other way to do it. Think about the number of conversations that you've had with people where you're like, oh, that's going to influence the way that I think about how I do things. And all because you're doing this podcast. I think that it is really important to not let yourself get stuck on downloads. Don't think about downloads. Think about how it is helping you grow personally and professionally. It's going to help you grow professionally because guess what? That's the stuff that's going to lead to more followers, more social, more engagement, all of those things. That's where the success comes in. How are you growing relationship and engagement with your followers?
Yep, 100%. Well, Matt, honestly, every time I get a chance to speak with you, I learn so much. Thank you for taking the time to join me today for this very special webinar on podcasting, which is something near and dear to my heart. And having somebody like yourself that actually helps people produce these things, right? See, I'm very selfish. I just want to produce my own show. I'm not interested in helping other people. I mean, I'll give you advice, sure, okay, but
Yeah.
and we got a winner. Paul says, I'm going for it, guys. Research and engage. All right, cool, Paul. Well, we're going to hold you
Awesome.
to that.
Awesome.
We're going
Yeah.
to hold you to that, Paul. But for those of you out there that are interested in, maybe taking that big next step, and you want a helping hand, Matt is available to help you with that. And honestly, he's been fantastic in helping me over the years. It's and not only that, he's just a great guy, very genuine, and he's going to help you out. It's you're going to be in good hands.
We're gonna have a lot of fun together. We're gonna have a lot of
Yeah.
fun together.
So quick sneak peek before we go. I am launching a paid workshop, folks, called LinkedIn Mastery for Sales. It's a 3-hour in-person workshop that I'll be doing in the Twin Cities here in January, probably towards the end of January. If you have interest in that and you want to talk to me, it's going to be a workshop. I'm limiting it to about 12 participants for the first coaching session, but it's going to be an intense workshop where I'm going to be going through a lot of my secrets, a lot of things that LinkedIn doesn't tell you. I'll be honest, I've never even seen YouTube videos and things around these tactics that I'm going to share in this workshop as well, because some of them, well, they're not stuff that that LinkedIn necessarily likes, but let me tell you, they work. They work, and they work great. So I'm going to get out there and share it with folks. So if you have interest in that workshop, it's coming up, and make sure you reach out. There'll be more if you're part of the newsletter, or if you're part of the Solo Club, which you can check out. It's on LinkedIn, the Solo Club for Solopreneurs. It's a private LinkedIn group that you can join and chat with other folks in your space. So, and connect with them. It's been great. Well, Matt, thanks again for joining me. Appreciate it. Where else can we find you? Where's your website at?
Yeah, you can find me at mkquinnmedia.com, or my podcast show right now is Better Content Everywhere on all your major services. So
Great. Yes, better content everywhere. And Schmidtless, go and subscribe today. All right, folks, we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining.